I sort of liked him because he was very bouncy, very effusive, very enthusiastic, and, you know, sort of drunk. I'm using the term advisedly. I think Freddie Mercury was a genius. If you're a genius, you have certain liberties which are given to you by society, and you can act a little different. You can act and you're expected to. I got it. And I like the music that I heard, actually, you know, in the studio. Let's go chasing rainbows in the sky. You know what? The hell with it. I'll have Freddie Mercury. I won't need Queen.
It's quite outrageous, yeah, and I think it's new for me as well because I've actually allowed an orchestra to go absolutely mad rather than restrict them. I just said, play all the notes that you haven't played in your life before, and so they were all just went completely crazy, and so there's basically a world war going on that track.
Though loved by the fans, the Mr. Bad Guy album was a commercial flop.
It did about 160,000, which for another person, you know, would have been an interesting result. For an offshoot of Queen, you know, it was a great disappointment. It was certainly not among my best deals that I've ever done. Despite the fact that, you know, the thing was not a success, I'm glad we did this thing together, you know, as part of my memory bank. And the fact that it didn't work, excuse me, fuck it. I don't know if you're going to edit that out or not. Good stains on my pillow.
He was absolutely genius.
Mike is an absolute genius.
I mean, I told him that many times, you're a genius, and he said...
Absolute genius.
When we were doing Hot Space, we started in Switzerland, then went on to Munich. As time went by, it got longer and longer, and people didn't show up, people went skiing. Freddie actually became the godfather of all my children, simply because I made a bet. I just said to Freddie, I think it's easier to conceive and give birth to a child than getting this album finished. I think I won by about a week. Freddie, I mean, really took the Godfather thing terribly serious. You know, he gave him, like a set of cutlery and teddy bears about 10 miles high and all sorts of stuff, and really constantly asked, how is he eating all right, what are you feeding him, and I mean, I think he cared more than his mother did. New York, you're gaining on me. New York, you're just that one step far away.
In New York, you could really walk on the wild side, you know. That was why I was here, and clearly why, you know, many other people, including Freddie, were drawn to spend a lot of time here. New York, you're just that one step far away.
If we were going to, you know, the Saint or something in New York, he would join the queue of people to get in, rather than just go to the front and just get ushered in, because he didn't want to be seen to be famous, sort of thing. But everybody would then say, oh look, it's Freddie Mercury standing in the queue.
Freddie was an adventurer, you know. We were both interested in blurring the lines, and you could do that in New York like no other city in the world. In the late 70s and into the 80s, it was really, if you want to talk about decadence, well, this was the place to be truly decadent. You could be the extreme part of your personality, and that was what was exciting about New York. Of course, that's what has killed a lot of people over the years, and nearly got me eventually, and I'm sure, you know, it was here that that Freddie contracted the illness that killed him.
Though he once thought Montreux tediously quiet, Freddie's increasing appreciation of its tranquil beauty led him from the late 80s onwards to buy a flat there and occupy his time with its decoration. This distracted him partially from the far more serious matter at hand. Though they all heard about it in different ways, the news that Freddie was HIV positive was equally devastating for all those close to him.
I received a telephone call from Freddie's GP to say that he'd had no response from telephone calls and would I remind him to call, which I did. Subsequently got calls back saying I still haven't had a call from Freddie. So I pursued, and in the end I was told why the GP needed to speak to Freddie. And I felt my heart fall out of my boots.
I suppose anyone's immediate reaction is, oh my God, are you sure? Yes, I am sure, darling. I have the best doctor, the best of everything. And a natural reaction, I suppose, is to say, well, let's find somebody else. You know, and he then just said to me, he said, well, listen, the door's always open if you want to leave. And I suppose my reaction was, I just looked at him and said, listen, don't be so silly. I'm not going to walk out over something like this.
One of our visits, family visits, we were in his bedroom, just me and Roger, and he just told us.
I was in the kitchen on my own, and he came down from upstairs, and he just said, well, look, I've got something to tell you. He says, yeah, okay. He says, look, you know I'm sick, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, I've got a good idea. He says, you know what it is? I said, yeah. He says, well, that's it. You know, that's it. It's not going to be talked about anymore. We do not speak about it anymore.
And then at one point he decided to just sort of invited us all over to the house for a meeting. And he just sort of told us, you know, the absolute facts, the facts that we were really starting to realise anyway. And really that produced a coming together, a closing of the ranks.
The way he was telling me that, you know, I am a seropositive, he says, and I developed the illness. I says, but you are so strong, and you sing like you sing, and yes, I still can do it, he says, but it comes a moment no more, and I know that, and I want you to know, because it's my duty to tell you this. I says, no, it's not duty, but I am very thankful that you have told me, because that means I have your friendship, and this is most important as anything to me.
Everything had to be treated very normally. He had to be treated normally. And if you found that you were flagging, you were becoming too emotional, then you would have to, he would naturally, I think, push you back in line and bring forward who he felt that he could rely on for what he needed.
Because of his illness, he had it. So he, you know, as I say, he didn't need someone else to remind him all the time.
He used to love us and respect us so much that he didn't want to hurt us. And we knew all along, and we didn't want to displease him, because we loved him equally well, as much. But that was sad.
At first, I couldn't believe what he was telling me. Basically, it was just going above my head. It was only later in the months as he deteriorated that it started to sink in. But even then, I just kept on hoping he would come out of it.
We knew it in September, August, September, that he was really ill. And he was in Montreux. And always he used to be with us on my birthday. And this birthday, he sent me flowers from Montreux. I said, I'm sorry, Mom, This time I can't be with you on your birthday, but I'll make it up. But of course it was October, and then of course he was very ill. It was very sad at that time.
He would never dwell on things like that because for him life was incredible and had to be pursued the best way possible at all times. That's why he never stopped being creative. You know, he could have easily given up and, you know, disappeared somewhere and sort of lived the rest of his life in absolute isolation, but he did not do that. This is another example of how brave the man was. You know, he was out working until he could actually work no more.
One regret was that there was still music in him when he died, and it was there, it was in his brain, but because of the body, he wasn't able to produce it.
If he didn't have, for example, I mean, the music and all that, he wouldn't have lasted as long. He really wouldn't.
And still with that immense humour and that immense drive. You know, that's what people will never know that weren't around at the time. He still had that incredible commitment, and that incredible commitment to perfection.
All you're doing is sort of making his life easier, making him able to deal with his life a little bit easier. You know, giving him that little bit more quality of life. The hardest part, I think, was the fact that you knew that whatever you were doing wasn't curing him. You were going to spend a year, 2 years doing this for this guy, and he still was going to die at the end of it.
At first I didn't believe it. No, it must be something else. It's a very hard thing to realise if it's somebody that's very close to you, I think.
I had some comfortable cashmere soft silk clothes made for him because even wearing clothing was hurting, and sat and played Scrabble with him and helped move furniture around so the other guys could have a bit of a break in the house. And he was spirit to the last. I mean, he and he said, I can't drink any champagne anymore. You drink it for me. You know, bottle of champagne to myself. Freddie watching, but you know, he wouldn't let the illness get in between his, you know, his friends and people around him.
I mean, he suffered so dreadfully, but he never told anybody about it.
When we were doing the Slightly Mad video, Freddie was on a completely different plane. Normally under the lighting and things like this, everybody gets very hot. I mean, Freddie had thermals on underneath all the clothing I'd put on him, underneath all the lights. He had no body weight at all.
I was absolutely amazed how he carried it through. He even timed his own death.
The best thing we could do for Freddie was just to talk to him, let him know that whatever he decided was right. So if he wanted to go, don't hang around for us. You know, we're going to be around afterwards. Don't wait. You know, don't hang on to this life if it's not right for you. If you're ready, go. In the last 6 months or so, Elton was a regular visitor. I mean, he cared so much about Freddie. You know, sometimes he might only be able to have stayed for sort of 5-10 minutes, but you could just see the emotion in his face when he left. I mean, he really cared for him.
The last weeks of his life, there was a lot of media outside, and which we tried to keep away. But the odd statements that were made by them outside were particularly unpleasant.
The very last time he came, because he knew that it was the last time he was going to see Freddie, because Freddie had already stopped the drugs.